Welcome back. 2 weeks.
I know. It's almost summer, you know?
It's gotten hot that way.
That song kind of reminds me of the cult classic Dazed and Confused.
Yes.
You know? And it's about, you know, school getting out, summertime, and all the trouble those teenagers.
That was a great movie in the 90s. And there's so many of the stars.
What?
The guy
Ben
from
Affleck?
Yellowstone.
Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah. The Cole.
Yeah,
guy
the redhead guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. Just looking back.
He was the...
Casey Affleck.
He was the senior who was hazing people the worst.
The one chasing them down.
Thank you, sir. May I have another? I know, that's not Dazed and Confused. But yeah, man.
I think that that movie would not be considered culturally appropriate. No.
Absolutely not. Man, if you go back and look at all those like 90s movies just in general.
And that one was based on the 70s.
Yeah. Some of the language, I'm like, oh, man. But, you know, different times, man.
Oh.
Hey, baby.
What is that?
Yeah, get you a full pull of that one.
Yes. So, first of all, we got to thank our sponsor, Comer Distributing. As always, today's, it's not quite a pint, is it?
Hey, you know what? This came from social media interaction with Singh, formerly over at the governor's office, and he asked about, can I bring my seltzers and just hang out and watch? So we're like, you know what? We got to get one of those tasty seltzers. And I, be quite frank, I don't drink seltzers.
Yeah.
At all.
It tastes like a Kool-Aid.
But if this has alcohol in it, you could get in trouble if you take these to the beach or the pool.
It does not taste like any alcohol.
It doesn't taste like beer. It tastes like fruit juice. But it's Modelo spiked. I didn't take Spanish, but AGUAS FRESCAS, whatever that is. Cucumber lime. Whatever. It's a cucumber lime Modelo seltzer. And yeah, it tastes like juice.
It tastes like a sweet cucumber lime Kool-Aid to me.
Wow.
But good.
So tipping our hat to Singh there.
Yes.
All right, episode 58. We're calling this Thomas Davis episode.
TD.
Again, even though we may not be fond of the Carolina Panthers owner, we do enjoy the team and the athletes, especially the ones who've played prior to Tepper taking the team. Thomas Davis.
Yes.
Great All-Pro, long-time Panther great.
Played at UGA.
Yep, number 58. Man, and that, upon a little bit of research, what did he have, almost a 20-year, 15, 17-year career?
Yeah.
15-year career.
You know, I didn't want us to draft him whenever we drafted him.
Yeah.
I remember getting upset. I was like, how do you pass on Derek Johnson, the outside linebacker from Texas?
Yeah, that's right.
And they drafted a safety to play outside linebacker. But, man, I was wrong. Johnson lasted about 6 years before he retired. He was great, but he didn't last long.
Yeah, Thomas Davis, I think he had a couple of pretty big injuries, but still.
And has done and does a lot in the Rock Hill community.
Yep. So, anyway, man, busy week. This first segment, we'll be talking about our weekend review. So, we'll touch on the bills that we passed on the floor.
Yes.
We'll highlight some of those. We'll talk about some of our committee work, me and 3M, you on LCI. We'll also talk about something that was making headlines this past week in the Senate. Basically impeaching or voting to remove our treasurer, Curtis Loftis.
The Senate's just been full of headlines this year.
From office, and they came in on Monday to do that.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that, and then also we'll talk about the Senate budget, in particular, how they passed a budget with no earmarks.
Yes. Which we issued a joint resolution with the Senate.
Yeah, and then also one that was making some social media headlines was the Senate stuck in
the in-district
increase of currently right now we get 1,000. They wanted to raise it to 2,500, so 2.5 times what we're currently being paid for in-district. So those are some of the.
I think all the prices have stayed the same since 1990, don't you?
Exactly. Milk is still $2.19. So yeah, man, you want to start off with committees?
Yeah.
Let's get into LCI first.
So at LCI, we had Tom Davis's joint resolution to look into bringing in some private companies with oversight to look at restarting VC Sumner.
Yeah.
Which that was the failed power plant, which the state evidently learned a lot from.
Yes.
And, a lot of the protections, people went to jail over it. But now we're looking at trying to get it revitalized and get it going because the plant's already built for the price that it would cost to finish it.
Or at least partially, right?
Yes.
Yep. So hopefully take on some savings from that, get some federal contributions, whether they're in grants or tax credits.
Yes.
In building nuclear energy. And then I like the idea of this not affecting the ratepayers, right? Bringing in the folks who, whether it's Google, DC Blocks, the folks who want to build, say, data centers, high performance computing, some of the bigger drawers of energy, having them contribute to the capital costs up front.
Yes.
And then bring in a balancing authority like Dominion Energy, Santee Cooper, Duke Energy, Southern, somebody like that to come in and manage the operations of the plant. So interesting you voted in support?
Yes, voted in support. It was unanimous, actually, in support. So it'll move out of subcommittee.
Okay.
And then the other thing that was on our agenda was the charging stations, the EV charging stations at truck stops or gas stations. Mm-hmm. And the point of why it's important is what we were saying was that these power companies, such as Dominion, Santee Cooper, they can't build them and then charge it back to the ratepayer.
Oh, right.
So they can't pass what the cost is back to the ratepayer and just increase rates. This was saying private companies can build them. They buy power just like anyone else.
Yep.
But that kept the private companies from saying, look, we're not going to invest into this because these power plants can just come in and pass the cost on down to the people who are getting power in their home.
Right. Okay.
So that was a common sense bill, and it was worked pretty thoroughly, but it passed no problem.
Do you remember who the sponsor of that bill was?
I don't.
I mean, that's a great idea. That's something I wasn't even in sort of my...
Well, I mean, you got to think about it because everything that we do in South Carolina that involves power, whenever we say ratepayer, we're talking about you.
Yeah.
If you pay for power, if they want to build something and it costs $1 billion, they don't care how much it costs because they could just turn around and pass it along to every ratepayer and it's spread out.
And that was the big...
corruption with VC Sumner.
VC Sumner exposed that system of basically cost plus, right?
Yes.
Utilities, hey, all this capital construction, I can build a substation, new transmission, and yeah, it costs us, but I'm going to pass it along to the consumer.
Yeah. So everyone's power bill goes up, and everybody's just like, why is my power bill going up?
Right.
Well, that's why.
So I like that idea, and I think since VC Sumner, there have been some management changes to where... And oversight from the government
well, I
side.
think they learned a lot, too. And it was the people who were corrupt went to jail.
Yeah.
And we learned as a government to make sure that we've got this oversight.
Yeah.
Now, all that was before I got into office and you got into office. So we came in, and that was the big black eye on the state, or the latest black eye on the state. So we knew that taking this up might not be popular, but luckily we had Tom Davis and a committee over the summer that really did an ad hoc, went out to VC Sumner. Mm-hmm. We've got Rick Lee up here in York County that serves on that, so he can educate us a little bit more.
Yeah, and Rick's a real smart guy, too. Yeah. I mean, just seems to be very knowledgeable about that space. So.
Yes. So that went through, no problem. That'll go to full committee next week. And then we had
the last bill was
EMP.
EMP bill.
Yeah, EMP protection. For those that don't know, EMP is an electric magnetic pulse. It is essentially a wave, so a solar flare can cause it, but there are signs from other countries that they have developed EMP weapons. I know the United States government has them, to where if you were to shoot something electronic, it basically fries the electrical system. So cars driving down the road, if they get shot with an EMP, all power shuts off.
Disables it, yep.
Yes.
And
one of the reasons I have 70s vehicles.
Got my carburetor, baby. Hey, but, that is a valid security concern, national security concern. And, Landing and a few others in the House Republican caucus have been talking about this. I will say that she's been having, it seems like, more discussions with folks who, share the concerns. And, it is a real risk to infrastructure integrity.
Yes.
Right? And if you fry
a nuclear power plant,
yeah.
and it can't cool down.
Or if you fry major electrical systems, substations, transmission lines, blow those transformers, go talk to anybody who you buy power from. Call them up and ask them how long it would take to get a transformer.
Yeah, we're not talking about
there's
storm.
widespread damage.
Yes.
Okay. City of Rock Hill, they might have, I don't know, 20, 40 transformers, but if they lose a whole system, the backlog to get a transformer is longer than you would think. It's longer than you could run on a generator to have a refrigerator or an AC. Let's put that.
And there was an entire study done on this called the Lake Wiley Project.
Okay.
To where they came up to Duke and they went through this. This is some of the top military minds in the country. I believe they said Representative Norman was involved as well. This was done years back to look at what the implications could be. However, we did not advance her bill because what it was saying was that these power companies have to offer financing. So you know how co-ops do. They say, if you install this or you do this, we'll just add it onto your bill.
Yes.
But our power companies are not set up that way. They're not a bank. So for them to be forced to go ahead and finance this, that was unfair. And they were doing it in homes. So if you look at an EMP shield, which I have one on my red car, it's essentially a surge protector that works, 200 times faster than a surge protector. So if it was hit with an electromagnetic pulse, it cuts it off to keep from frying your battery.
Oh,
right?
Gotcha.
But there's no one that's really qualified to install this technology. Most of this stuff is like black ops, military contractors. Right. So it's not like you're going to pick up the phone book and say, hey, we need you to go out and install this. And it was saying the power companies have to do it.
Okay.
And they were doing it after the meter, which power companies are not responsible for.
Right.
So that knocked it out.
So there's some logistical, technical issues that still need to be worked out.
Yeah.
Besides,
and ensuring the
big question is, what's the cost?
Well, and I think the solution is for us to pass a resolution asking the power companies to really look into it. And as many of the representatives for the power companies testified to, they can't go into detail without making themselves vulnerable in a committee meeting.
Right.
But they have looked into some of this.
Okay.
But it's not really public knowledge, but it's their job to ensure safety.
Gotcha.
That's the reason they did the whole Fukushima project and
that's
everything else. So.
Okay, so y'all had a good subcommittee then.
Yeah, we adjourned, debated on it, but there was a lot of discussion on it.
Okay. What's the next steps for Representative Kathleen Landing? Is she going to sort of take that discussion back and sort of work through?
I think still working on it.
Okay.
And, I talked to her for a little bit afterwards. And then, of course, we've got Bill down in the Low Country that has worked for Dominion his entire career.
Yeah, Bill Hager.
Yes, smart guy. He understands these.
Is he on that sub?
Yes.
Oh, great.
So we were all three having a discussion afterwards.
Okay.
So that was good.
Good deal. Well, we on the 3M side, we had a full committee that took up. We had a certified anesthesiologist assistance bill. We are the last state in the country to have physician supervision at a 1-to-2 ratio. Everyone else has gone to a 1-to-4 ratio. And so we've passed this bill, I believe, last term as well. I think it was unanimous last term. So this was, I think, a low-hanging fruit. This is
whenever you were asked if you could spell anesthesiologist?
Yes, that's right. And again, for the two listeners, I cannot without looking.
I can't even say it, right?
Yeah. Representative Caskey, right there towards the end. I was already walking off because I had said, move to vote. And Caskey's raising his hand. He's like, would you take a question? I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. So I'll walk back up there. And, he, without looking, can you spell anesthesiologist? I was like, absolutely not. But
a good laugh.
Yeah. So, and what that does, physicians, healthcare facilities, they've all been asking for this because currently right now, there is, in a lot of places around the state, there's a lack of staffing. And so this allows more access to healthcare. So this was a no-brainer. We also had the one that caused a little bit of conversation was we had a bill last in the 125th General Assembly where we broke up DHEC.
Yes.
Moved them to public health and environmental services. And in that bill, when we voted yes for it, there was a section that said we have to go back into existing code in a separate bill and change basically the department name from DHEC, Health and Environmental Control, to Department of Public Health, where it applies to the code, or Department of Environmental Services. That's it.
But yeah, AAF thought that it was a great time to do everything.
This is a technical bill. That's all we're doing. And go look at the roll call of Senate Bill 399. There were a few people who voted against it. One of them was Thomas Beach, who again he offered up some amendments and wanted to take this thing down a road that. And again, I've been trying to work for about 2 weeks with Beach and Representative Pace. I called and we discussed this. Representative Joe White and I talked about this, and we're still working. But they had some concerns that I share. That in the case of emergency situations, what happens, right? And I said, look, that power has already been transferred. That is already in code. The power and authority, when we voted for S399, it's already transferred to Public Health and Environmental Services. They wanted to basically go back and redebate Senate
and change it.
Bill 399. I said, we've already done that. That's years old. We are now just changing the grammatical word of DHEC to either Public Health or Environmental Services. That's it. And so I welcome them again publicly to work on a standalone bill that addresses the emergency powers.
They didn't show that video.
They did not share that video. And again, I get it. They're advocating their position. I get it. But what they did not show, and maybe I should go rip that reel and throw it. But what they did not show was me saying, hey, I remember COVID too. I remember the federal government, the Joe Biden administration telling me that because I had a federal contract as a business owner, I had to mandate COVID vaccinations or COVID shots, because they're not vaccines really, the COVID shot to all my employees. And I remember I called Ralph and I said, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not doing it. And I said, but I also have a duty to my employees, so I need your help. And at the time, Ralph's like, Heath, we just got to have a press conference. And I'm like, press conference?
He's not a press conference guy.
I was like,
press conference? Press conference?
What is and again, I understand our Congressman Ralph Norman, he understands the power of a press conference because it brings attention to it, right? Me being a business owner, I'm like, no, I don't want to have a press conference. I just want to find a workable solution. I don't need people to know what I'm doing.
Like, Ralph, I don't need a press conference. Just you get your 600 people up there and get this fixed.
So anyway, like a lot of business owners during COVID, we found workable solutions to get around some of these federal mandates, right? And so anyway, that is just sort of my mindset to everything. Like, I don't need to talk about it.
Be about it.
Just got to be about it. Just find a workable solution that's pragmatic, that it's reasonable, and you take care of, at this time, I was taking care of my employees, but also checking the box. And we found religious exemptions. So had a form, employees sign.
So you brought out a tub and baptized everyone?
So we good. We good, dog. Well, what you were the pastor of the...
oh, no.
Yeah. Aren't you a
That's
pastor?
an internet thing.
So anyway, again, Representative Edgerton spoke passionately about some of the stuff, her experiences during COVID. I get it. Representative Beach did the same thing. I get it. Some of the hyperbole, I don't think it was necessary, but hey, there's
a time and a place to do it. It's the same argument that we have with the budget many times.
I know. And so I get where they're coming from. I get their passion. I get all that. But we do also still have to work. And so we're trying to work to some of those things. I did find out in that whole process, that the Senate has a bill, I believe it's S-54, that Senator Shane Martin's been working on. And a lot of the things that we had concerns about is addressed in that bill. So I actually distributed that bill and some of the bill analysis to the members.
We don't have 5 weeks for them to debate it.
Well, that's a shot. So that's what we took care of in 3M. Back to the floor. You want to talk about Loftis real quick?
Yeah, I mean, the whole Curtis Loftis situation, the biggest problem is we had a lot of citizens demanding to know what happened to the $1.8 billion.
Yeah.
And those demands came from Curtis Loftis saying in a meeting that the $1.8 billion was real and we had made money off of it.
We were actually making millions of dollars of interest on it.
But that became the problem. But Loftis is our investor, not our accountant. And he's going off the information that's given by the Comptroller General, which is out, and everyone else kind of resigned. And I think a lot of it could have been solved by just once we seen that the money was not there, and this was purely just a statistic, basically a computer programming.
Yeah, so
as things transfer.
Let's give a little context to the two listeners. So I think it was back in like 2014, there was a software change in the Comptroller's office, Treasurer's office, and during this software switch, they found that there was an imbalance of $1.8 billion. And I think it was more of just software to software talking, and there was an issue. So someone in the office went and said, well, let's just create an account and in the computer log $1.8 billion to balance it.
Yeah, and then we'll fix it.
And then we'll just fix it later. This is a software
too
glitch,
long.
blah, 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 blah. So I think that's where we started getting ourselves into trouble because folks, instead of actually addressing what the problem was, they just, to balance and reconcile the accounts, they
just did their fix because they
dummy
knew
account.
that money was not missing.
Correct. Right.
That was the ultimate thing.
And so that then I think we get an audit in 2017 where the third-party auditor tells the Treasurer's office, and Loftis was in office then, tells them of the problem, and he then doesn't disclose it.
Yeah.
Or he doesn't.
And that's the rule that everyone's saying that it was up for impeachment.
Yeah.
Is that he has to disclose it. I think it was 3.9
report it,
or something.
Let folks know.
Yeah.
Let us know in the General Assembly. None of that happened. And then finally, this is in our first term, back in 23, this comes to a head.
Comptroller General resigns.
Who, Richard Ekstrom was our Comptroller General. He's a former treasurer back in like the Beasley days, actually. So he resigns, and Curtis Loftis does not. So, and I think at that point, this is where relationships come in, I think. Because if he had went to the Senate or our Ways and Means and said, hey, look, and if he had been forthright and transparent and maybe a little bit penitent, because ultimately he is in leadership, even though he's the state treasurer, not the comptroller or, an auditor. I think if he had just said, look, mistakes were made, yeah, we could have done a better job. And these are the steps internally, or these are the policy changes that I'm making in my office to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
I think if he had been like that, taken that attitude, this whole thing could have been averted. I think the problem
Or it could be that just certain members don't like him. And they saw this as a way to get rid of him.
I think he just went about it maybe the wrong way and just said, yeah, this is not my fault. The money's there. We're getting interest. What's your problem? He didn't, there was no apology from him. There was no, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying it was totally his fault. But as a person in leadership, you need to, and that's what leadership is a lot of times. It's taking responsibility for other people's mistakes, learning from it, and making corrections, and then moving on.
Yes.
That's a lot of what leadership's about. And I think if that had happened, maybe we could have averted it. But we didn't, so that's what we saw on Monday.
And they voted to send it over to us, voting to impeach him. The problem that I have is I look at this like a presidential election. He's a statewide officer.
Yep.
And we are stating that the people chose him to begin with. And how much time we talk about what is not getting passed right now in the Senate, whether it's the 5 weeks on the floor for S-244.
Yeah.
We add this. Like, how much is not getting done and being held up because of things like this? Like, I have no desire to take this up in the House.
I think the body at large doesn't.
Yeah.
And again,
this is a waste of time. He's up for election next year. Let the people decide.
Yeah.
And the people have continued to elect Curtis year after year after year. And who am I to undo the will of the people? And I understand if it was real money, no problem whatsoever. I would say you're incompetent.
Yeah.
Right? But if we, like I said before, if we're impeaching people based on incompetence, there's quite a few members that I would like to bring up there.
Yeah, and another thing is, does his mistakes rise to a level
I don't think so.
that would cause us to vote him out of office?
Yeah.
Like to remove him. And I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't think it rose to that level. Again, mistakes were made, incompetence, gross incompetence, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, I thought
still
it was
doesn't rise to a
ridiculous
level.
whenever Bill Clinton was getting impeached.
Right.
Like, this has nothing to do as long as it went.
Let's get back. Let's get
No,
back
I'm
into-
just I'm just saying. But that was the first impeachment I remember, and since then it seems like every single time,
Yeah.
in order to slow down whoever the people elect as president, we go through this impeachment process, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's the consensus of the Republican caucus. We don't have any, because folks, we got 6 days left.
Yeah.
We still got to get energy done, school choice done, tort reform done, tax reform done. I mean,
Well, on school choice, why don't we talk about what happened in the Senate this week on it?
oh yeah, while we're talking about
Oh, goodness, yeah. So while the debate's going on Friday,
so they passed the budget.
or Thursday,
They passed their budget out late Wednesday evening. They come back
bragged
in,
about the massive cuts.
They come back in on Thursday to go to work for school choice. Yeah, and what happened?
We had the National Guard was inviting legislators out to come see the facilities and everything else. So there's a
Yep.
big group that was going. Well, while they are still trying to get legislation done because they are so backlogged over there right now,
Yeah.
many of the legislators went ahead and left because they had been there since Monday, understand,
Yeah.
and went to their prior commitment with the National Guard. Well,
So-
the Democrats see that.
So yeah, and this is what a senator I talked to when I said, "Man, what happened?" He goes, "Hey, man, a few folks left to go on that tour or whatever."
Yeah.
And during like a tabling motion on an amendment or something that was sort of
They
trivial,
called the bill up.
no. They realized that the numbers weren't there, and that's when the Dems said,
That's a Russell Ott move.
and
Russell
but
Ott's now in the Senate, so you better be
Again-
ready for rules.
again, it's an astute move.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
They called for a quorum. Quorum wasn't there, so school
Adjourned.
choice got adjourned.
Yeah. So hopefully they'll get back at it
Yeah.
first thing Tuesday.
Didn't want to throw us off, but yeah, it just come up. So that
Yeah.
was very important.
Yep.
to discuss.
So let's talk about the no earmarks.
So 2 weeks ago, we issued a joint resolution with the Senate
Yeah.
that we would, and this comes shortly after we issued our tax bill, the economic impact statement come out stating that it would raise taxes on a significant number of people. And the House and the Senate, but Ways and Means and Senate Finance got together and made the joint resolution that we were not going to have any earmarks
Yep.
in this year's budget. Whether it was just over taxes, if it's over the market, regardless of what it is,
Yeah.
we're trying to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible for the citizens of South Carolina. And whenever people say earmarks and talk about pork, it's not just that. We're talking about, I think the fire districts had $250 million request in the budget this year.
Yeah.
So whenever you're talking about a rural fire district that is not getting the millage that they need to be able to support, they're going to raise your local taxes in order to try to get this fire truck instead of the state keeping the local taxes down by providing that fire truck. And if it doesn't happen, well, guess what? Your homeowner's insurance is going to go up.
Because you don't have
now,
firefighters.
yeah, because the fire trucks can't get to your house because of all the Yankees moving into your neighborhood. That's the simplistic version.
Yeah, and and I agree. I think fiscal responsibility is key. My concern with is I don't want any secret earmarks, right? I don't have, we talk about this in York County. A lot of times we'll go to bat for our police department, or a sewer project, or a school, let's say, or whatever. And so we make reasonable requests over our past 2 years for whatever it is, a water tower.
Yes.
Things of that nature that's in our district or in our county. And we've done that the past 2 years. I think I average, when I looked at what I personally went and put in earmarks, the thing I like about the way we did it freshman year is if you're going to do it, it's transparent.
Yes.
And
everything's listed.
It's listed and it has your name by it.
And anyone who co-sponsored it.
Yeah. And so anybody who wants to go look at what your earmarks are, they can go look at it. And if they want to challenge your fiscal responsibility, they can do it.
Right.
So I went back and looked. I think I averaged like $500,000 for my first 2 years of earmarks.
Yeah.
Mine
was higher, but it was all in.
No, 1 year it was like $1 million, but the next year it was like 100-something thousand. So, 550,000 was my average. Now, I went around and looked at some others, and it's damn ridiculous.
Yes.
And again, when I say ridiculous, I'm just meaning the monetary value. It could have been a worthy spend in their district for like $14 million for something in their tech school.
Which we kind of knew because of the Panther deal failing.
Yeah.
That York County, or Rock Hill specifically, was not getting much. So I put in, even my earmarks, they were for Field Day Park, which is actually Tommy's district, right across the road.
Right.
And Blue Granite, the acquisition of Blue Granite, to keep the water bills down.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and again, every year certain priorities come up, whether it's tech school, whether it's the county needs some help with some rural road stuff, because C funds.
I think the problem we run into is the nonprofits.
Yes, yeah. And so
we cut that out on county council level as well.
This is what I just want to be careful of, is when we say no earmarks, I want to make sure that a certain few who maybe have more familiarity with the budget aren't putting things in the budget
as a line item,
and it's hidden somewhere and it's not transparent.
Yeah.
Because that'll tick me off.
Their police department needs body cams, so they just put it in the state police department budget, and then the state's going to write their local municipality a check.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so again, I'm all for fiscal accountability and transparency, and that is my concern.
Well,
so we'll see what happens. We'll see how that plays out, because I do think that in our state, as long as you're being transparent and you'll be held accountable for it, whether it's by the voters in your district or otherwise, if you can say, look, it's very important that this water project gets done for the town of, name your town in your district, right? That's an important priority. And I'm willing to go and ask the state for $200,000 or $250,000 of state support on a county project or a
because
priority.
If you don't do it, the local municipality might raise their taxes.
Right. And so again, I think South Carolinians are smart enough to understand that earmarks may have a negative connotation to it, but I also believe that we're a state that we want to reinvest in our local communities. Right?
Well, something that I've learned,
and you know better what's going on in Lake Wiley, than I do. And so
it's hard to argue with the rep that's there on what the importance is.
Correct. Now, again, local citizens of whatever House district your member's from, if you see that they keep spending, $500,000 on some nonprofit that you don't agree with, then don't vote for them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's just a concern.
But instead it's twisted that we in the upstate are supporting something that some member appropriated down in the low country.
Yeah, right.
But another thing that I've learned is that the importance of earmarks is typically around 2%.
Yeah.
All right? 2% of the total budget.
Yeah.
And the reason that is set up that way is because we are guesstimating our budget on the amount of tax revenue that's coming in.
Yeah, so folks,
that gives a little bit of trial and error.
The Board of Economic Advisors, the BEA, gives us periodic updates on the estimated tax revenue that will come in each year.
Yes.
Because we have to do a balanced budget. And so I think the last one we get is in April, and then we get another one in June. So based on those estimated tax revenues will tell us if we have a surplus.
How accurate we are.
That's why a lot of times when we come into session next year, if there was a surplus, you may have, let's say, $200 million of a surplus that we didn't know about. So a lot of times you get a one-time non-recurring $200 million, and we'll pay down or pay forward it for roads and bridges.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So a lot of times in the budget discussions, that's what you hear. Hey guys, we got $300 million of one-time non-recurring money. We put that to.
But on the flip side of that, the other purpose of that is that let's say we have a shortfall in the budget.
Yes.
Appropriations or earmarks are not funded.
Yes.
They are not required like they are in the line item of the budget. So that gives us that out and that flexibility so they can cut and just never write the checks that we voted for in the earmarks.
Yeah, correct. So again, and a lot of times there may be, let's say, $400 million of a surplus that we didn't know about. And when we come back, Ways and Means has already taken $200, put it in the Capital Reserve Fund. For instance, this year we had Hurricane Helene come in and devastate the western counties of our state. Aiken, Augusta was tore up all through the upstate, through Spartanburg County, Anderson, all of those communities that got impacted, drained them of local funds. The state came in and helped them with emergency management.
Right.
Well, we had to spend, $200 million in this year's budget just to replenish those things. So again, those one-time non-recurring, we're taking that surplus and at least being responsible with how we're spending it.
And there's a huge, we've seen the Doge SC guy post up. I mean, I actually replied. He's one of the few people I replied to on social media over the past couple of weeks. But he was talking about comparing us to Florida and saying the amount of people and how much they spend on roads versus we spend on roads to imply that there's some corruption. South Carolina has the third largest transportation network as a state in the entire country.
Yes.
So we handle a lot more roads, and if we don't, it goes back to your local community, which guess what? That means your millage is going up.
Right. Well, and also, I think we had Director Justin Powell of the DOT came and talked to us this past week, and he literally talked about how we have the third largest state system, folks.
Yes.
So compared to Florida, a lot of Florida's roads aren't state roads. They're county local roads. So the percentage of state-owned and maintained roads in South Carolina is much greater.
71% of the roads that are state-controlled and maintained.
In South Carolina?
Yes.
Yeah.
So and that goes back to the county not wanting. So let's use Twin Lakes as an example. People got mad at me because I put pennies for progress, or I put my appropriations onto Twin Lakes Road, and they're like, well, it's a state road. The state should be maintaining it. Well, the whole point of the gas tax is for it to go back to repave these roads.
Right.
And that with the state maintaining 71%, Mount Gallant, Twin Lakes, Selney's out, like all of these are state roads, our most traveled roads, and the county does not want that overhead.
Yeah. So again, that's some of the concerns that I have. Maybe you share as far as the earmarks go. I want it to be transparent. And again, if voters don't like what you're transparently earmarking for, they'll see you at the polls. You know what I mean?
I agree.
If they like it, they'll come out and support you. If they don't like it, they won't support you. But
it'd be great if there just wasn't so much false information out there in politics.
So last one that I want to talk about before we get to the next segment is a lot of hoopla was made about the Senate increasing our in-district funding compensation from $1,000 a month to $2,500. Now, again, folks, let's hit rewind. During the House budget, this came up. Yes. Our very own Representative John King, here out of York County, puts this up every year. He always does.
But it's not usually in district, is it? He's done it different ways.
I think he's tried to raise compensation. Yeah.
Which
it might just be straight compensation.
The compensation was set for legislators at $10,000 a year in 1978.
Yep, and also
1990 they increased it $500.
Right, and then we also have we get paid $10,500.
$10,400. Yeah.
Okay, so then we also get an in-district contribution of $1,000 a month.
Yes.
For various
for going to
expenditures.
all the events and everything
right.
else that you have to go to as a legislator, showing up to schools. So that's covering your fuel, and you don't get paid for those days or anything like that.
Or just any expenditures that you experience as a legislator.
Plaques.
For instance,
Every time we
correct.
give a
Every time we
resolution.
do a resolution, right now it costs $85.
Yes. Flags.
Every time a Boy Scout troop wants a flag, it costs us what now? $47.
It went up 20. I think it went up close to $20 whenever we passed the bill our freshman year to state that we have to use American-made flags.
Yep, and I think I even told the story on myself about not knowing I was paying for these flags personally.
Yeah. Well,
and I didn't realize that you could use the campaign account for that. But again, so all of those are just sort of some soft costs that I didn't know about.
But it literally costs to come down there.
Yeah. So
and at that, even that 10,400, you get it at one time.
Yep.
After it takes out the insurance and taxes, it's a little over 3,000 something for me.
Yeah.
Is what I take home, what goes into my bank account.
Yep. So
then every day you get a per diem.
Yeah.
That you go down there.
And mileage. Yeah.
And mileage if you're over 50 miles.
Yep, that's right. So I give you that context because this conversation has come up before. This isn't something new that the Senate just dropped. So when John King brought this up, I thought he had some good points, right? Like, it's true. We have not adjusted this in 30 years. We probably should be responsible and look at it because I do want more of the middle income guy or man or woman to be able to represent their communities, right? So let's remove this barrier to entry. But how do we do it where it's fiscally responsible? So that's why
we're not saying we're voting for ourselves an increase, but I think it's great to do it in the future.
That's what I said. Remember, I ran around the room.
But we can't do that in a budget.
Right. And so that's why I told John, I was like, hey man, you need to write a bill that says this, and don't do it for us. Do it like effective January 1, 2030 or 2028 or whatever it is. So that way it doesn't look like you're a self-serving.
And I think it should just be tied to inflation.
Like index of cost of living and whatever.
So that way you're not having to write another bill.
Yeah, right.
But there, in my opinion, being someone who, whenever I got elected to the state house, only make $50,000 a year, supporting my family, barely getting by, come down there, it really is. And look, I'm there to serve. So it's not about money, but you still have to worry about whether you can actually do it. And I've often said the biggest problem that I think that we have on state level is that it is set up for only the rich to represent. That is a huge problem. Everyone wants to talk about lawyer, legislator. Well, why do we have so many lawyer legislators? Because they're the only ones that can really afford to run their practice and go down there unless you are wealthy, you're retired, you're...
right.
But the common man just does not have the ability to serve. And I think, my personal opinion, is there are many there that have that power that don't want you to be able to go in and challenge them.
Well, hold on. Let's back up. I'm not going to be accusatory here because I consider myself a common man. I have been fortunate and blessed that I have been successful.
But you weren't always that way.
No,
I mean, you know, and you understand that.
Correct. But and that's why on this issue I'm like, I'm good with it. I do not. I will.
You
not
just don't want to feel like you're voting yourself a pay increase.
I will not support $2,500.
Well, and so here's the thing.
Like,
so
and you and I talked about
I don't view that as a pay increase. Everyone wants to say that's a pay increase.
Oh, no.
I view that as in-district funding, which is where I lose money.
Yep. I will not support an increase of that magnitude.
Oh, I could agree with that.
Yeah.
That's a big increase, and maybe we should scale it.
Stair step it, whatever.
And Bill Taylor had a good suggestion. He said, perhaps we should have a citizen committee to vote and look into this. Yeah. And for them to make recommendations. Yeah. Because another thing I learned, many of the legislators down there, they were on the old retirement plan.
Oh, yeah. That got done away with.
They get paid very well
yes.
under that. Now, we don't have that.
Anymore.
So
it used to be, I think if you were here
20 years?
I think it was, the old way used to be like 3 terms, man. Like it was something really ridiculous that you had to be here. I think you had to win re-election 2 or 3 times or something silly that I heard, and you were vested. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But that's old school. That was like 20-something years ago.
See, poor people like me, we don't have retirement anyway, so we're not looking at
baby.
it.
That's right.
We'll work until I die.
So that'll be interesting to see because I know that got a lot of hoopla on social media. That got a lot of attention. A lot of people started pinging. I saw Senator Jeff Zell got hit with that. Again, I won't vote for it, but I do understand the reason for the increase or what we're asking for. Because you and I have talked about this before on this show that we actually want to spend more money in the House to get staff.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's needed.
Because currently right now,
we have one part-time person between 4 of us.
Right, where the Senate gets 1 person, right?
Full-time, and then they've got all their committee staff too.
So folks, if you want more efficient government, it's very difficult
just
to be
grow
efficient.
Government if you want it more efficient.
I mean, you know what I mean? But like this is the paradox that we find ourselves. Like we want to deliver government more efficiently, but we can't do it without.
And if we're supposed to be
staff.
part-time, how are you supposed to prepare for all the bills that are coming up in numerous committees and understand it? You know, I've seen people say, oh, well, you only work X number of days. That's not true.
That's a farce.
Yeah.
Maybe officially.
This is, even with running my own business, other than whenever I first started, I don't think I've put in more hours into a job.
And it's constant.
Yes.
Like this morning.
Like, yeah, that's the reason I carry 2 phones. So if I'm on date night with my family, I'm not getting interrupted.
Yeah.
Because I do believe 90% of success is showing up and replying to constituents.
Yes. But and this isn't a pity party either, because you and I both really enjoy this.
Yes.
Like we enjoy serving folks. We enjoy trying to find.
We just don't enjoy the narratives to make it sound like, y'all barely work and all this. And I've said it before. Whenever someone says, you work for me, and I'm like, well, damn, maybe I should sue you for not paying me minimum wage.
Well, and speaking of enjoying the work, it's that time of year where our high school graduates get to graduate here inside of a month. And Guffey and I did this from the first term. And we took on
a task.
We have taken on, man,
but it's worth
we
it.
both committed to each other that, hey, these high school graduates are important. This is one of the biggest days of their life. We are not going to e-sign a letter. So every year we come up with a different sort of letter that we sort of put input in. And you and I sign.
Send it out to every senior within our districts, and it is.
I have a stack for Rock Hill right now.
I've got a stack for Clover about this stuff.
It is Bible thick. Clover
is one of the biggest high schools.
Clover. That's a good thing y'all are getting another high school, man. Yeah. I mean, that thing is an Encyclopedia Britannica for sure.
But and it helps me. I mean, especially I actually had a moment as we were signing letters. I was doing the Rock Hill High ones.
Yeah.
And coming across the kids either that I coached.
Yeah. So I'm doing the same thing, and it's so funny. I actually got my daughter involved because I was like, hey, the girl that's graduating from your tennis team. She's like, yeah, Emmy, and so I'll write her a little note too.
Yeah.
But you know what the great thing about this is? Not only now are we doing it, I think
other reps
it's
are
spreading.
Doing it. Yeah.
Like we're getting other.
We have what is it? Is it LSA or whatever? Can y'all not tell anybody else about this?
Yeah. Because it's a lot of paper. But
it is. But I use all of my postage on that.
Yeah. All our high school graduates will get a personalized letter that's signed by you, me, sometimes Randy Ligon. Is David Martin getting in?
David and Jackie are doing it.
Okay, good.
Too,
good.
Together for Fort Mill.
And so, that's some of the work that we do take home, because I took home a stack.
Y'all can thank York County for the letters. but I think look, you went to school for 12 years, you busted your tail.
I know, man.
This is a big achievement. And yes, you've got that diploma, but I can't imagine getting a letter from an elected official just saying thank you for the great work. I mean, that's one of the things that Ralph Norman is so good at is that constituent services. Now, granted, he's got $2 million worth of staff, but getting those letters out to people constantly. My wrist was about to break just from signing them.
And we'll probably mention it again as it comes closer, but graduates, congratulations to all the high schools here in York County. You will be getting letters from us.
Yes.
So, again, appreciate all your hard work. And that's not just the students, that's faculty, staff, and most importantly, parents.
Yes.
You know, getting those kids across the finish line.
Some of us never thought they would make it.
This episode of Pints of Politics is brought to you by Comer Distributing. Comer Distributing Company is a wholesale beer distributor located in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Founded in 1971, Comer is a family-owned business that distributes beer and other beverages to York, Chester, Fairfield, Lancaster, Kershaw, Lexington, and Richland counties.
It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, hanging pictures.
Every Saturday, Rap Attack,
Man.
Mr. Magic Molly Mall.
That was, what was that, 94? That was my junior, senior.
See, he came out real big with I Love It When You Call Me Big Papa.
Oh, yeah.
And then once you got the album, I mean, the album's one of the best ones.
This is reminiscent, Somerville High School, spring break, 94, 95.
I was in elementary school.
Down in Edisto.
No.
Yeah, man, that was brings back some memories. But yeah, let's, in this segment, I just want to talk about what's left.
Yes.
Right? We have 2 weeks left. That's 6 working days, and it's coming quick.
There is a lot.
So big ticket items: energy, tax reform, tort reform, school choice. God, what else we got left?
I know we
got
the combination of all the regs. It's been sitting in the Senate since February. One of the first bills to increase.
Oh, was that
efficiency?
SC Doge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before the name was taken, but yes.
Yeah. So, man, let's talk tort reform first, because that's the one that seems to just stick in my craw. But so
it's just because it's an omnibus bill.
Yeah, it is. So the House passed out our liquor liability, a few weeks ago? No, a month or so ago now, month and a half ago.
Yeah, we've had it passed. And it was passed unanimously, which it didn't make it through.
Yep.
Last
again,
session.
let's set the table for the two listeners. So this has been an ongoing discussion, just comprehensive tort reform, and that's tort reform that could impact issues like modified joint and several liability, dram shop liability and insurance requirements, dram shops being alcohol-related laws, transportation, distribution, logistics, and other motor vehicle-related torts that impact the supply chain, medical malpractice, right? Again, and then lastly, construction defects, statute of repose. So again, a lot of that, you probably were like, man, what the hell you just talked about, right? But those are the major sections that are found in Senate Bill 244, which was their bill to reform, to do tort reform. Now, and it got a lot of attention in the newspapers, social media. This pitted trial lawyers and insurance companies against one another. It really pitted sort of small business, large business against trial lawyers because this is their livelihood, right? Them, and again, I'm going to say this from a trial attorney sort of perspective, them fighting for victims and families to get their financial due when there have been wrongdoings.
Right.
Right?
No different than my attorney that's suing Meta for me.
Yeah. Now, the other side of it would be is these ambulance chasing attorneys, as Tommy Pope calls them, that are just litigious, just trying to get settlements when, look, when you get rear-ended, sometimes you have neck pain, sometimes you don't, but a lot of times folks may overdo it a little bit. And
my neck and my back.
Yeah, correct. and so you're trying to find a balance between those two, right?
And we have so many people that have been in wrecks and they got $1 million in medical bills, but their insurance will only pay out $500,000. That's not even going to pay the medical bills, much less the legal bills.
Yeah, correct. So another one I thought during all this conversation was, if two guys go drinking all day, and let's say me and you go to Outsiders, okay, get overserved, make the irresponsible decision to jump in a car. You're driving. We get in an accident. I can sue you.
Right now.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, but you made the decision to get into the car.
Correct. And I got into the car with the full knowledge that you are not
right,
and you have been overserved. You should not be behind the wheel.
Yeah.
And so one of the aspects
they're wanting to blame the bar for saying, well, yeah, my client wasn't able to make a decision because they overserved them.
Right. And so you get into all these hypotheticals and all of these cases and settlements of cases. And so that is, in essence, S-244. It's a shotgun blast, right? And that's why it took so long, because it was a titanic effort, right? It was an omnibus approach to tort reform. Now, over in the House, we passed out liquor liability last year, even though I didn't support it because I didn't like the language in it.
Yes.
I think you didn't support it either.
I didn't support it either.
What do we call it? The Obamacare?
Obamacare for bars.
So this year, to credit Chairman Weston Newton over in Judiciary, he said, we are going to tackle these things laser focused. Bill, issue by issue, will be one bill. So liquor liability, Judiciary passed that out.
They made it to where you have to be 51% responsible before you could be sued.
Yep, modified joint and several liability, and had some dram shop stuff. So again, that passed over and went to the Senate. Senate passed over their S-244 a few weeks after that. We had sent them our bill. All right. While we were gone on furlough, the Senate takes our House bill and basically does a strike.
Instead of taking it up,
they take it up and do a strike and insert, putting 244 on our House bill.
Yeah.
So, folks, for the two listeners, that is basically using the House bill as the vehicle and putting their bill back on our House bill. For the two listeners, my son Ben has joined us. So, hey, bud, how's it going? Anyway, so that's what happened while we were gone. I love you too, buddy. And you go jump in the pool. So anyway, the Senate took up our House bill, threw their language on it, and then sent it right back to us. So now we basically have two Senate 244s sitting over in the House. And the question for us is, now what do we do with it, right? I've had a lot of discussions with members about, because in fairness to the House staff and law clerks, I think Johnson's subcommittee took weeks of testimony on this issue. Well, we don't have that time.
We've got 2 weeks.
And so what are we to do with 244? I think the only thing we could do is strip it down to the sections that the Judiciary Committee is familiar with, staff's familiar with, and let's try to pass it out. And I think what that would curtail itself to would be the joint and several sections, or modified joint and several sections, and then the dram shop liability and insurance requirements. Those are the two, I think, that are the main ones. But here's the issue. The Senate doesn't want to agree to that. And the reason why is because I think the majority leader over there, Shane Massey, and I think he's correct, that's the juice.
Yeah.
Right? That is the juice of this whole argument in tort reform. And he does not want to let the juice get out of the...
And no one in the Senate's up for election.
Well, that's true too. And so he wants to get something more than just joint and several and liquor liability.
Yeah.
Right? So that is something that we'll have to hopefully get done. It's a challenge that I know for...
And so many small businesses are shutting down.
Yeah.
And struggling. And builders, home builders, contractors.
I know.
They're just getting tore up with all this.
And again, I'm just hopeful that we can get something in the joint and several and liquor liability, maybe throw some med mal in there as well, and maybe with some commitments. And again, we talk about lack of trust. I think hopefully can be some trust built up between the Senate and the House where, hey, feasibly we cannot get all this done.
Yeah.
But we can get modified joint and several, dram shop, med mal, and let's agree to it in conference with the commitments that by March 1st of next year, we are going to tackle the construction pieces, the home building pieces.
Just the transportation.
Yeah. Yep. And get that done.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful something.
And I know that's not going to satisfy many people, especially in those industries that are struggling right now.
They're not. And look, I'm willing to come back. I'm willing to do special session. I don't care. We're getting out early this year on May 8th. Have the governor call us back. I'm fine with that too.
Yeah.
And I think folks in the business community know I have been, and I know you support this as well, but I have been very active in trying to, collectively push folks and get them to have those discussions. And again, what I mean by that is, guys, I'm not in the judiciary.
The problem is it's a polarizing issue because people want to look at it and just say, oh, well, the attorneys are bad, or, well, the insurance companies are bad.
Yeah.
And I've said it over and over. I've never met a broke attorney and I've never met a broke insurance company, but I've met plenty of broke small business owners.
Yes, correct.
And that's what we keep running into. And everyone wants to turn it into an issue of whether it is the attorneys wanting to make all this money. And, I've heard it before and it makes sense. Everybody wants tort reform until it's your family.
Correct.
But I thought people like David Martin had a great suggestion about raising the magistrates, what they can handle.
Right.
I was actually talking to another attorney.
And that would actually make it more efficient.
Yeah. And the other attorney said, look, I think magistrates should be able to handle whatever the minimum requirement is for automobile insurance.
Right.
Because
that's a large caseload.
Yeah, that takes it off of our circuit courts and it puts it in the magistrates, and the magistrates are able to handle it, and we could knock that out fairly quickly.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. So again, hopefully we're going to be able to get something done. I know let's switch over to energy for a second. I know the energy stuff, it sounds like leadership in the House and the Senate are negotiating. I think the sticking point was that amendment that got put on, and I can't remember who put it on, about
go ahead, Mr. Ben.
Be careful, bud.
Go ahead. Just be careful.
There you go.
Hey, good job.
Ben's trying to navigate through the cameras and the wires and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, back to the energy. I think the sticking point was an amendment that, watch yourself, bud, that got put on about data centers, where no state incentives could be used for data centers. And again, I'm not on LCI. I haven't been up to speed on all.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had that in our committee. So did they pull it off?
The Senate?
Yeah.
No, I believe it's on there.
Okay, and they're wanting to pull it off. The incentives can't be used for data centers.
There's some discussion.
And the reason is because data centers are a good tax revenue for the state, because you're bringing in very few Yankees.
Yep.
And you're bringing in a lot of revenue that can be taxed.
Yep. That's a lot of property taxes and those types of things. But they pull a lot of energy and not a lot of jobs, right?
Right.
So yeah. But again, I do think data centers are going to be an important component to the future economy of the state, not just now, but generations to come. So something to talk about. Tax reform. You want to go on that one?
Tax reform. So we Ways and Means presented 3 different options this week. Essentially, our tax reform bill, for all of those that say, well, why didn't you remove your name off of this bill? Or, oh, if you didn't remove your name, then you just want to
raise
taxes on people. No, the intent of the bill has not changed one bit. The intent was to lower to a flat fair tax, get off the federal system, and make it even and fair for everyone. So we're not punishing success. We don't have this Bernie Sanders style tax system. And we are a lower percentage than our neighboring states. So it's not like we're doing the, right now people want to say we got the highest tax rate at 6.25.
Yeah, correct.
So it was addressing that. I'm not going to pull my name off of it, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to vote for it if it comes onto the floor the way it is right now.
Yeah, correct.
Because the economic impact statement is just, if you're explaining it, you're losing.
Yeah.
Always.
And again, I think our style isn't bumper sticker style politics.
Yeah.
And again, the messaging on that could have been better. you know, because we're talking about historic tax reform, or I think I did not say this, but I think maybe someone had said this is an historic tax cut, which for the state it is, but for many it is not.
Right.
And so that's where I think we could do better as far as messaging goes. But at the end of the day, this new alternative that I think we saw this past week,
option C,
basically takes 3 brackets in the income tax, 0, 3, or 6.2. It takes it to, for higher earners, it's 549 flat tax. And for lower earners, it's 199, something like that. Or 195.
But it is a path to 0.
Yes, correct.
That is the important part of it.
Yep. And so for our constituents, we hear you, right? For the folks who are making less than, what was it?
Don't want to eliminate those deductions. That's going to make your taxes go up right away.
So that is still a work in progress, but I think the Ways and Means members have been listening to us in this discussion. So hopefully we'll see something this upcoming week.
Yes.
In regards to
But as with anyone's bill, I mean, even if you took, and I use this as an example just because of the way Jordan Pace is constantly bashing us, saying we wanted to raise taxes. Even if you took his bill that's 0% and that's taxing the rich, which literally is a Bernie Sanders bill, once you submitted it and you get an economic impact statement, I'm sure you're going to see the difference of who's going up, who's going down.
Right.
And then you have to make the decision. And that's the point of the economic impact statement. And actually have Rainwater come in, who is the guy who did the economic impact statement, and to explain it. But one of the biggest misconceptions was that, and people don't realize this, is 44% of the population were paying 0 taxes.
Correct.
Well, 44% of
residents.
Of taxpayers.
Yeah.
But 14% of them don't live here.
Yes. So it ended up being like what?
Yeah.
31.
It was a little over 30. Yeah.
The original flat tax.
In the original one. But that narrative just got twisted around. Oh, you're raising taxes on 56%, which granted, there are others that might have been paying a smaller percentage due to their deductions.
Yeah, right.
But there's no way to say that this is just flat. This income tax bracket is affected.
Right. And again, we want to de-link from the federal system. We also want to be able to capture the folks, the higher earners, who are, let's say, making, I don't know, household income of $500 to $1 million, who, through savvy accountants or tax attorneys, are paying less.
And most of the time, that's people making more than $100,000 a year that are hiring savvy attorneys.
Correct.
Or savvy accountants.
And so we want to be able to capture that as well. Again, I think in principle, moving to a flat tax is the correct policy decision. Sometimes, though,
and we're not doing it like other states. We're not doing it like Tennessee did and raising 5% in sales tax.
Yeah, that's what
because that would kill places like York County, Aiken, like anyone that's on a border with one of these other states that has a lower income tax. Our small businesses are done. People are just going right across the border.
Yeah, the business community would not want to see us, instead of choking off tax revenue or basically cutting spending, recurring dollars coming into
71% of all the roads.
Yeah, right. to then say, hey, businesses, we're going to put another penny or two on you to offset that so we can still keep spending money liberal. You just see what I'm saying? And so I think the approach that came out of the Republican caucus is the correct one. And again, it may not sell politically, and I get it. But I think the only way that we ensure or force us to smaller government is to choke off the tax revenue.
You know, I went back this weekend. I was trying to, I'm working on a book, and I was watching some of the, the videos from campaign kickoff.
Cannonball.
Yeah. But I was watching some of those videos, and while I'm watching it, Senator Clymer was one of the people who introduced me. And he made the comment that he was saying Guffey's like a thermostat. It's easy to make the popular decisions. But sometimes you need to have someone that's going to make the best decision, even if it's unpopular.
Yeah.
And that's the way we have to look at this. Because if we're making a decision based on if we're going to get elected again And I understand there's so much more that we want to do.
Right.
But if you're making that decision on an issue, then you don't need to be in office.
Well, and again, I think there are some members around the state that, fear that if we were to go to a flat tax, that they would be labeled as someone who raised taxes on a lot of folks who live in their district.
Right.
And folks that, while it may be sound policy, the impact would be so negative that they wouldn't be back. And I agree with that sentiment. But if you believe that everyone should have some skin in the game, if you believe, a flat fair tax has been like something that has been talked
the
about
Ross Perot,
in the Republican
Ron
Party
Paul.
forever.
Yeah.
And again, I understand that there are some who want to take advantage of this issue on social media that, hey, maybe it raises someone's taxes who's making $60,000 a year. I don't know, $250, $500. And I know while that's unpopular, sometimes doing the right thing is unpopular, right?
Yes.
And so, but hearing all of those concerns from us, folks around the state, I think the Ways and Means members came up with some consensus to where instead of having 3 tax brackets, we had a 2 flat with a roadmap to 0 and de-link from the federal system still. So I'm hopeful to see what we come up with next week, because it seems like that's the alternative that folks are choosing.
Yes.
So
anything big coming up in committee for you?
I got my last medical sub on Tuesday. Originally had about 9 or 10 bills in it, and people were like, "What are you doing? Why are you still having subcommittee meetings?" And I said,
well, about 60% of all the bills out of 3 M's come out of you.
I'm like, look, man, I'm here to work. While we're still here, I'm going to take advantage of the time.
Yep.
There's a lot of important, again, they might not be big ticket items or things that make headlines, but there are businesses,
things that are going to improve the state.
Yeah, that impact negatively to folks, and we need to fix them. So yeah, we're going to fix them. Originally, I think we had about 9 or 10 bills. We were able to move one of them over to another subcommittee through whatever reasons. I only think I have about 4 or 5.
Okay.
But that will be my last medical subcommittee of the year. Still, we'll probably have an off-session PBM committee meeting. But yeah, looking forward to next week. That's what we got.
I'll have my first insurance rate ad hoc committee.
On Thursday, right?
Yeah. So that will come up. And then I have a bill, my App Store Accountability Act.
Oh, yeah.
Will come up in judiciary. This is something that, as I've said before, we don't ask R.J. Reynolds to verify the age of everybody that gets cigarettes. We ask the store to do so. So I've got a meeting with Google on Monday. They want to talk to me, surprise, surprise, because this will affect Google, Apple, and Amazon. They're pretty much the 3 stores.
Are they coming up here? Or?
I don't know. I haven't set it up. I was getting a text about it. But so I'll meet with them. We'll have the hearing on Tuesday in subcommittee, hopefully in full committee. Okay. And we can at least get it passed throughout the House. The language, I was the first to submit this bill in the country. And I met an attorney at a Southern Legislative Conference.
Yeah.
And we started talking, and he was talking about the App Store accountability. I've become friends with him. We're working on language. We submitted it in South Carolina first last year. And since then, Utah has submitted one as well. They made a bunch of different changes. I think it's too many moving parts.
Right.
I'm not trying to complicate it. I'm trying to keep it simple.
Yeah. And Utah seemed to be at the forefront, right, of AI and some of those things, right?
One of the things that I've learned is every state operates different. Like some of them are full-time positions for 3 months.
Oh,
like,
right.
You're just in there full-time. And everybody's like, why do they move stuff quicker? Some of them are only there for 1 month. Like, I think Montana's only there for 1 month.
Yeah, and that's it. I think Georgia, our neighboring state, does the same thing or even Virginia, does like their committee work in the fall.
Yeah.
They'll come in like 1 week out of a month for like, I don't know, September, October, November.
All the committee works, and then they're ready as soon as they go to the floor.
In the fall. And whatever bills come out of those weeks of work, then they come for like 30 days, and all they're doing is floor debate and work to get stuff done, which it's unique. It's very different from the
I wouldn't mind it if our introductions and resolutions.
Yeah, right.
They were all in one day.
Oh, right.
Like because that takes up so much time, and sometimes I feel like we come in and we just do that.
Yeah.
We do we do first reading and we do third readings,
right.
and then we're out.
Yeah, onto the calendar. But yeah, so we'll see. And a lot of the stuff that hopefully, what I'm trying to do in my last subcommittee is give us work, or give the full committee work when we come back in January.
Yes.
We may not be able to get to it. I don't know. But a lot of times at the first of the year, everyone's waiting on
committee work to get done.
Right. And so
especially like this year, like that's one of the reasons that we seem to move slower is because we had to start everything over.
Yeah. So hopefully that'll get us up and running quicker when we come back next year.
Yes.
So yeah, another busy week. We also want to go ahead and announce our Sine Die episode.
Yes.
We will be doing
it on the Zoo night
on Wednesday.
Yep.
May 7th. Because what we have come to find out is a lot of that Sine Die stuff, people are just exhausted. They get out and it's harder to get guests or whatever on the show. So
yes,
we wanted to do that on Wednesday. I've done Zoo night. Have you done Zoo?
I have. But I think a lot of the families will be there.
Yeah.
So we might not have as many legislators there, but we'll probably have a bunch of them Gamecocks running around.
But yeah, we're going to be doing that over the USC Bev Lab again. We'll be talking to those folks. Also, we're going to have a special guest. Julius Friedrichsen is going to be there to talk to us just about
Mr. AI.
Yep. AI, cybersecurity, those types of things. What's going on there at the school. Also, probably have some other special guests that we'll announce maybe next week. Maybe on midweek sips, maybe. So, and then I kind of like having that on that Wednesday because we still don't know
what's going to happen.
What we're going to get done on Thursday. So that'll give us plenty to talk about when we do the episode.
Yeah.
After Sine Die Thursday. So
Sine Die is always fun.
Yeah. Yep.
Difference between me and you. What's the difference between me and you?
Well, in this segment, there's a big difference between...
It's not just non-color matching shirts this week.
Yeah, so wanted to talk about a little local issue that popped up late yesterday.
Yeah, I'm the one that's normally on social media, and I have taken a 2-week hiatus from it. And next thing I know...
And look, mental health is greater.
Yeah.
You have greater clarity, clear mind, stress-free living, baby. Yeah, so I get on social media I don't know. When I say social media, I'm talking about Facebook. I get on that probably once a day, maybe. I'm more of a Twitter just for news and that sort of thing. But anyway, wanted to highlight something that happened that I think just demonstrates the culture and the environment of politics that I think social media plays a role in, right? And this is what I would say an ugly story. This is showing just the ugly side of how people just hide behind a keyboard or an anonymous Facebook account and just lose their minds. And so a little bit of...
Or it's that or either just the Yankees that move into an area.
Yep.
And act like they know what's best. They bring their northern politics down
New Jersey, my South Carolina. So there is a group called Move Silfab Solar out of Fort Mill.
Yeah.
Now,
very active.
To give a little context, Silfab Solar came into Fort Mill, and you're going to might have to jump in here because they moved in, got permitting to start their business.
Light industrial, so they went through zoning, they got approved, but county council, the only vote that they had was for a FELO, which is a fee in lieu of taxes.
Yep.
And whenever you're doing that, you're voting on a code name. You're not really voting on a business because then you could just discriminate against a business because you don't want them there.
Yep.
Right.
So, we don't have to get too far in the weeds, but basically these folks are, I don't even know what they're doing. Are they putting together solar panels? So it's something in that space, right?
I think what they do is the coating. Yeah, the parts come in, they're supposed to put them together, and they do a coating on top of it.
Okay.
And the chemical that does the coating, that is what is considered a toxic chemical.
Okay.
Now, there are numerous other companies around Fort Mill, all around there, that use that exact same chemical.
Okay. So this has caused a firestorm here lately, and I would probably contribute it to a few folks who have. I think they're trying to take advantage of
I certainly thought so during the election. I mean, I haven't seen them out on flatbed trailers still holding press conferences.
I mean,
now.
literally, this thing has been hijacked, as Representative Cox would say. And so anyway.
But it is an important issue for people all over the board that are worried about this place being built right beside a school.
Correct.
However, the school bought the land beside the light industrial. Silfab moved in, and look, I might not have all my facts straight because I've tried to stay out of it, but it sounds like Silfab went to get rezoned as heavy industrial, and county approved it, which is staff or zoning board of appeals.
Right.
They approved it, and now the people are upset because they feel like it could be a disaster right beside of a school.
Yeah. So, which is possible, right? There's a potential for
no different than the nuclear station right up the road.
Negative health impact. So, again, that's the issue. There has been a Move Silvab Solar out of Fort Mill Facebook group created, and someone, I guess, in that group had shared this, and basically it says, in addition to calling and emailing Senator Michael Johnson, who is the senator north of the river.
The senator who sponsored a bill to stop Silfab.
Yeah. Consider also reaching out directly to Miss Johnson, a teacher, a mother, and someone who might truly understand our concerns. And that's where I kind of...
They cross the line.
Yes. And again, they even have a form letter to copy and paste for whoever chooses to do this.
For all you men out there, how would you feel if people were giving out your wife's work information and telling them to contact her, or telling everyone to contact her?
Yeah.
And this is a group with over 3,000 people.
Yeah, and it literally gives a form letter in the post that says, Dear Miss Johnson, and goes on and on and on.
I'm sorry, Miss Johnson.
And it actually talks about how, look, men may be the head of the household, but the women are the neck. So you got to get to Miss Johnson to turn her, you know what I mean? To get Senator Johnson.
That sounds like one of those Morning Star sermons.
Man, and so again, I'm not a social media guy, but this stepped way over the line. You and I have talked about this before. That drives me crazy, how people dehumanize us as elected officials. And look, I'm just trying to serve my 40,000.
Just another citizen in the district.
And now to then pull in someone's spouse who's not elected.
Right.
She is a hardworking teacher up in Fort Mill. And now you want to bring her in? And I'm like, come on, man. Go ahead and edit here, because that is a bunch of That's what it is. It's crossing a line, and I called it out. And I don't even know who the
shared it.
I don't want to, I'm not doxing anybody here, but whoever it was
that was anonymous
who started arguing with me saying I was lying, this, that, and the other. I'm like, it's your post. How am I lying? He goes, you're misrepresenting the facts of this thing, da da da. And he said, we have already taken this down. And I said, that's fine. And I appreciate you taking it down. That's a responsible thing to do, because that's
name the name of who posted it.
Yeah. I said, look,
as administrator, you see that.
Whoever the admin is, just get a public apology to Mrs. Johnson and give us the name of whoever the admin was who posted it. And probably this is egregious enough where I'd kick that member out.
Yeah.
So, Scott Jensen, whoever you are, I don't know, you're probably a nice guy. You just made a bad choice here. So all I'm saying is name the name and publicly apologize to Miss Johnson. She didn't do anything to you. She might even be in support of this effort, and that's what makes it even more problematic.
I mean, considering her husband filed a bill to support the effort.
Yeah, right.
And this is why the hell do people, whenever you write a bill, email you to tell you need to get this moving?
Yeah.
Like, you took the time to write a bill and to jump through the hoops. And look, even if you think that they're swamped, they want to win to get a bill moved. Like, let's be honest. Like, no one is writing a bill and saying, "Oh, let's hold this up."
Yeah, correct.
Let's not do it.
Yeah. So anyway, that was sort of the local issue that just came up yesterday that I wanted to highlight, because you see this more and more, and it's not just in politics, but you see it more and more with social media. And I just have concerns.
It's
folks,
not the right way to do things. And perhaps, look, let's be fair. You always like to say, let's be fair. Perhaps someone made a bad judgment call, posted it on there. Mr. Jensen seen it, removed it.
Yep.
You know, but to not suspend that person, to not say, look, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, there's
that becomes an issue, and that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he was intentionally.
No. I don't think the Jensen guy was either. That's why I said, just publicly apologize. Let us know who did it, and let me know what the group is doing to address that bad actor.
As with any group, the larger you get, the more chance people are going to disagree. And
and again, someone mentioned on some of the comments that no, there's no way someone posted this under the banner of the move SilFab out of Fort Mill,
but the screenshot says it right there.
Yeah. So this person must have been an admin. You know who they are. Kick them out of your group. And be
so they're saying it was one of the admins that actually posted.
Yeah. I don't know. So again, that's just the ugliness of a profession, or it's not a profession, but the service that we do. It just comes along with the territory, and that's sad to say. So,
and I haven't had too much more local drama. We did have the Moms for Liberty pushing for the obscenities bill that is actually coming up in judiciary with my bill.
Okay.
But there wasn't really any drama. I think it's pretty common sense. And got that hearing coming up. But that's about it.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Without me being on social media, it's funny. I don't have too much drama right now.
Hey, correlation?
It's coming. It's like a roller coaster. Like, hey.
Well, and maybe that'll be...
I'm going to jump back in the ring. Let's do some double dutch. I'm ready to go.
and the one thing talking about the obscenity bill is, I think a constituent
language
was just some of the language. And again, I don't disagree that, I read Catcher in the Rye, To Kill a Mockingbird. Some of the Tom Sawyer Huck Finn literature has some language in it that, probably isn't appropriate in the year 2025. How do we address that? Right?
Correct.
How do we account for the historical literature and the way they spoke back then at the time when it was written versus how we interpret it now? So again, just some of those nuances, I think, is the only sort of hang up that maybe the committee can look into. But yeah, I think generally speaking, everyone agrees that, preschoolers shouldn't have foul
profane
language.
Or bad images and all that.
Yeah, correct. So, well, that'll do it for this episode, man.
Yeah, man.
This Modelo Aguas Frescas cucumber lime.
I changed on the cucumber lime because it was a little too sweet to me, to this hibiscus.
Yeah.
And I actually like it a little bit better.
Overall, good flavor, but it does taste like juicy juice.
It sounds like it's somebody that's a neck would drink, not a head, right?
if you're gonna drink this, I might pour it over soda water or something.
Yeah, I can see that on ice or something like that. Yeah, it tastes more like a sugary drink than an alcoholic beverage, and it does say a light spike.
Yep, but hey, Simpson,
I don't feel anything.
You may enjoy it. You should definitely check it out.
This is definitely a Simpson drink.
But again, sponsored. Thank you for co-distributing again for sponsoring this episode, the Thomas Davis episode 58, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good one.
Anything you want or who you want to be, you can be.